I'm here with the director of 40 Years, a Prisoner, Tommy Oliver, and the main subject of the film, Mike Africa Jr. Welcome. Thank you both for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for the film as well. Man, I went through a lot watching it. I'm sure everyone will. Such an important story to tell. Tommy, maybe can you start by telling us how you met Mike and how long you've been following his story with your camera?
Actually, somebody just walked in. Just come say hi since they walked in. Just come say
hi.
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 Oh my God. Hello. What? Oh yeah. Oh my God. This is amazing. Tommy, you surprised me, man. This is fantastic. We got the whole family together here.
They just saw the film for the very first time. And so I just saw it. And so I wanted to make sure.
Can you join us for just a moment and just tell us your reactions to seeing your story?
I don't want to be
there. You sit off, or you can sit behind him. Yeah.
I'm good right here.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're here with Debbie Africa and Mike Africa Jr. You've just watched this film. You lived this story. What was it like to see that up on the screen?
It was a roller coaster of emotions, but it was really phenomenal film, man. It was great. You can see the effort that Tommy put into this film. I know he's been working diligently, coming up to the prison while we were still there, and to see the end of this, or part of the end, it was a phenomenal film.
Tommy, you did make a phenomenal film. I'd begun before this surprise by asking you how long you've been following the story, but I still want to know that because it feels like we get the full arc of the journey that Mike Jr. was going on, trying to free his parents. And yeah, when did you come into that story?
Maybe 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been quite a while, and we've spent a lot of time together, both in shooting and you were 7 hours away. And so Mike and I would drive up to Cambridge Springs, which is 7 hours from Philly. And so we'd drive back and forth a number of times. And so we had about 3 years. And this was my first time. So this was the first time that they saw it. And we had the rest of Move here as well. And so other folks who were interviewed. And I wanted to make sure they saw the film. And two things happened for me that it was in the beginning, as I was sitting there watching it with particularly the three of you. I'm not an emotional person, but I got emotional. And I really did. And it was something that I just could not control. And so it was just sort of knowing and having been there for what Mike went through, it really just got to me. And then afterward, for so long, Move had been dehumanized in the media, and their story had been misrepresented in so many ways. And for as much as Mike, Debbie embraced me, there was still a good amount or healthy amount of skepticism around what this story would be. And there were a few people afterward who, the most skeptical, just were super happy. And we're like, good job. And it meant the world. It really meant the world to hear from people who had been mistreated, to know that their story had been treated with respect and honesty and warts and all. I mean, it was never meant to be just a one-sided piece, but that it was balanced in a way that represented them.
There have been films about Move and that history, particularly the horrific moment of the bombing in the 1980s. But this is a story both of the politics of Move, but of family as well. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so special is you get to see what it was like, Mike Jr., for you to grow up separated from your parents, not really having the access to them that most of us take for granted. Can you talk a little bit about how that felt for you? Move was something that your parents were a part of. You were born into that in a way. You didn't make those choices yourself, but they shaped your life. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your family dynamic in terms of Move.
You know, the interesting thing about Move from the inside that people don't see or didn't see on the cameras or the news stations was the type of love that we shared for each other. I think my dad put it best in the film where he said, Mike just has such a good heart. And, you know, that's probably the most, like the best compliment that I could like hear somebody say, because I do put so much effort into like just trying to do the right thing and not do it based on the people, but do it more based on what's necessary to help and be right. And the love that I've always experienced in Move with my mom and my dad and other Move members, that's what kept me bonded to. That's what kept me bonded to. Besides that, that's what kept me bonded to, like, you know, the work and my parents, and you know that started with, you know, just probably that first day when I saw my dad and he told me that I was his son and he was my father. You know, and it's just been like a really strong connection and love there that just never ended. We stayed connected through writing letters and phone calls and, you know, stories from other people that knew my dad that I didn't know he knew or whatever. And that love was shared throughout the organization as long as I've been in it.
Mm-hmm. Tommy, you mentioned how Move members were demonized, and so much of that came through the media of the time. I mean, you've got some clips in the film of TV news journalists really being kind of outlandish in terms of how they're representing what was going on, and the standoff between the police officers who blockaded the Move members, and so it feels like there was all of this, you know, misrepresentation through the news media at the time, and the film that you've made is an attempt to tell a very different story. How conscious were you of kind of correcting previous images that had been out there about the Africa family and Move generally?
I think for me, it really came down to wanting to portray things accurately. And like you were saying, so many times it was a biased perspective or a limited perspective, and it didn't tell the whole story. And I think one of the places you see that in the film is during the section where there is a split screen. And so you see the way that things are portrayed on the news, and it's contrasted with what was actually happening at that time on the ground. And in 1978, there was no social media. You didn't have the ability to get the on-the-ground perspective. And so the way people understood Move was courtesy of what they saw on TV for the most part. And so for me, I wanted to really just make sure that people saw it for what it was completely, mm-hmm. and not just the portion of the story that had been told. And part of it was like, I didn't know what it was at all. I didn't know, even beyond the cursory details, I did not know. And so there was so much that we had to explore and dig through and really mine to figure out what was happening and what the truth was.
Mm-hmm. For Mike Sr. and for Debbie, your story was misrepresented and unrepresented for so long. Can you talk a little bit about what that felt like at the time, to kind of maybe see images of yourself on the TV and how that compared to the life that you were living, and then also to see Tommy's film and what did that mean to you to get that version of the story on screen?
Well, for me, a lot of it was frustrating because back in the day and the way the media portrayed us, and in a lot of ways, to be quite frankly honest, you know, I could see in some situations why they would portray us a certain way because they did simply because they just didn't know, especially like neighbors and things, people like that. But so it was frustrating because, you know, in my heart, and I know in Mike's heart, and a lot of Move people's hearts, we are good people, and we did not ever want to be. We didn't want people to go away with a concept that was not right, and that was a really bad looking. It was a really bad light on us like that. But then seeing the film today, Tommy's film was just, it was just awesome. It was just almost like relief because, you know, finally, I felt like finally, you know, like the actual facts and truth is out there, you know, and the way he did it was so unbiased. He just took both sides and just let that speak for itself. And, you know, it was just so incredibly good. Like the footage was good. The, you know, the sound bites were good. The, you know, the little clips that he got for, you know, the funny things that he got with all the really fast motion, and the split screen was awesome too, because you see like they're saying one thing and something else is happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff that I didn't know, that we didn't know about because we were incarcerated at the time. So a lot of, you see, also was a lot of new stuff that I had never seen or heard. So it was great.
It's you know, I'm anxious to see people view this film, particularly those in Philadelphia, particularly those reporters and other funders, you know, that, you know, just, you know, they ambassadors, man, you know, and much like today, the people that come out on the other side of Jake Blake and George Floyd, and, you know, they make these comments, he wasn't an angel, you know, that's not the point, man. Totally not the point. You know, it's just like they didn't get it with Colin Kaepernick when he said, you know, I'm just taking the knee for justice, and they tried to make it into something else. Or you're against the military, or you're against the flag, and all this kind of stuff. You know, they just jumped on it and didn't know what they was talking about. And Tommy's film, and
intentionally
Tommy's,
tried to derail it to make it seem like it was something that it wasn't, to intentionally then humanize it or make him out to be a bad guy so that they could have justification for tarnishing his name and treating him the way they did. And that's what they did to us.
Which is much, yeah.
All right. So, right. No, that's absolutely the, where I'm coming from. So, seeing this film is like complete vindication. You know, you feel a sense of that. And even though for years, you know, I didn't care what they thought anyway, because I know how they depict other people and other movements, and how they've done other people who just came out to try to make a change. You know, we know that revolutionaries are made by the system. Nobody wants to just be out on the street. They would rather be with their families. They would rather be peaceful. You won't let them be peaceful because you keep on seeing these images and you keep on spurring these images on, you know. And so, you know, I'm rambling a little bit, man, but this film was,
No, I hear you.
absolutely phenomenal, man. It was
Satisfying. It gives you
Yes,
some
it is.
big
Yeah.
sense of satisfaction. Like, yeah.
Your story, Mike Sr. and Debbie, with Move is decades old now, 35 plus years from right now. What do you think might have been different, given what we're seeing now with Jacob Blake and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the campaigns that have risen up? What do you think would have been different if things like social media, if things like cell phone camera footage, video footage was available then? Do you think that the way that there was a popular mobilization, do you think that would have been any different back then?
Oh man, I think that's an absolute rhetorical question.
Yes.
You know, if I may, what happened to Delbert, there were photographs and there was film. It was unambiguous what happened to him, and it made no difference at all.
The lightning rod.
Yes, it made no difference. And the thing is, like right now, police brutality isn't getting worse, it's getting recorded. But what's happening after the fact is still not changing.
It's getting worse.
They got off
right.
42 years ago or 40 years ago or whenever that trial was. People are getting off today, if they are even getting to that point of being tried.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed it or not when they were explaining that when Rizzo was explaining how it was the press that was ramping things up, and if he had his way, they would have killed people. They would go in there and they do this and that, and the response from the reporters who were reporting on these stories. Well, if you're feeling this way while you're reporting, and you're demonstrating this during a press conference about the thing, what kind of reporting do you think they were doing on this all along?
Mm.
Yeah, basically, if you're willing to say that on the record, what are you saying off the record?
Right. And there's no recording.
The reasons why they jammed Mumia.
Yeah.
Because Mumia was in the courtroom.
And he asked that question. He asked the question about that, and Rizzo threatened him at that press conference.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happened with him. Like he was reporting like transcript, so like you did, like transcript for transcript. Okay, this is what they're saying. He threatened him at first, for his job, telling him that he shouldn't be reporting these things, and by his own mouth. He said, okay, well, I'm just going to take it from the transcripts. And that's what he would do. So he would just quote the transcripts. And they didn't like that either because, at that point, like we was killing them in court as far as, just really attacking their so-called defense or prosecution. And so and you see what happened with him. They just went one after the other.
Right. Excuse me. So with George Floyd and
Jacob.
Breonna Taylor.
Cigarettes.
Eric Garner.
Eric Garner.
All they did was record the truth, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they harassed those guys who just showed the cell phone recording of this, and they eventually put those guys in jail, not the cops. That cop is still walking around petitioning for his job, but the guys who just recorded the truth, they attacked them. Yeah. So today, when they see this film, I'm sure they'll feel the same way, that they need to go after the filmmaker.
You better watch yourself, Tommy.
The truth teller, because it makes them look really, really bad.
The last thing I want to ask, Tommy, the film ends on a positive note, and it's just so gratifying, that moment when the family is together. But that wasn't a certain outcome, and I wonder, were you determined to film until you got to that positive outcome?
Sorry, it just froze for a second.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying that the film ends on a positive outcome. That wasn't a sure thing. Mm-hmm. Were you determined to film until you got to that positive outcome, or were you just gonna follow the story wherever it went?
I was gonna follow the story wherever it went, and part of it in the beginning, it was the hope that maybe I could contribute a little bit. Maybe I could educate people about what was going on. But for me, it was something that needed to be told. It was something that needed to be shown in a big way and hadn't. And so it wasn't about, oh, there's this thing that's going to happen, and so let me make sure I'm there for that. I was just wanting to make sure that people knew what was going on. And I remember I had no idea that 7 people were still in prison for the murder of one police officer, because 2 of them died. And so when I met Mike for the first time 3-4 years ago, that was just astounding to me. And so and that's where it all started.
Well, thank you for the film, and it's a real honor to meet all of you, Mike Africa, Debbie Africa, Mike Africa Jr., and Tommy. It's good to see you again, and thank you so much for 40 Years a Prisoner. Really appreciate it. We're glad to have it at the festival. Thank you.
I'm very honored that you have us, and I appreciate your support as always. It really means a lot.
Always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.